Dr. Oh, wait. We're live, Dr. Kiltz.
We're live. Welcome, everyone. Another beautiful day in God's paradise. And we're talking with Rebecca, who is a beautiful carnivore and sharing her family journey with 9 children and a lifestyle that too many of us are not living anymore for reasons that maybe we'll talk a little bit about. And Alia, how was your time off?
It was great. A lot of beach time. We took the kids with us. I was telling Rebecca it was an anniversary, but a whole family thing. It was great.
Well, that's what it is, because it's a family anniversaries of our family. That's really it. We're going to hashtag KMT, and questions are please encouraged and welcome, or comments are all about positivity. That's one of the things that we want to focus on is positivity and kindness. And Alia, should we do a Kiltz hat today?
Yeah, let's do a Kiltz hat.
Okay, cool.
It's my new tribe hat.
And we had a really great week, and another week starting. Although I'm actually not here tonight. I was supposed to be on a plane this morning, but somehow it got switched. I don't know what happened, but it's the world of travel these days. And Rebecca, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell those listening around the world a little about who you are and why carnivore family.
Oh, all right. So I'm Rebecca Ruiz, and I started the Carnivore Family YouTube channel to kind of show what my family does. We're a family of 11, so I have 9 kids, and my husband and I decided to take the whole family carnivore almost 4 years ago. So I do videos about what do we feed the kids, what do they pack for school lunch, what do we do when we go to camp. Do the kids like it? What are their favorite meals? The kids do cooking videos showing what they like to make and how they cook in the kitchen, and just trying to answer questions, because I think there's a growing interest out there, but a lot of people are like, I don't know what to feed my kid. Like, how do you make kids eat this when all they want are, macaroni and cheese and cereal and, candy?
Well, tell us a little bit about how you got to this spot of carnivore in the first place, and what it's done for yourself and your family.
Sure. So it started with my husband. It was 4 years ago on Father's Day that we thought he was having a heart attack. He was late 40s. And so I took him to the ER, and it turned out blood pressure was like 220 over 150 or something like that. And they were like, it's amazing you didn't have a stroke. It was so crazy high. And so they kept him overnight. The doctor said, eat less salt. We'll get you some medication. Can't do much for it. It was pretty much like, eat a Mediterranean diet, good luck with you. And he was miserable. He was frustrated. He was already on a dozen medications, and he was just kind of at his wit's end. And so he had heard about the carnivore diet. He said, the worst it could do is kill me, and I'm about to, I'm on the verge of death anyway. He's like, let's try it. And I said, we'll do it as a family, because there's no way that we're going to sit and have pizza night while he's trying to just eat ground beef and eggs. And so we did it as a family, and within days, his medical issues started to improve. Like, he started to feel better. He was less lethargic. His blood pressure started to get better. He started losing weight. And a year later, he was off of all of his medications and 100 pounds down. And everybody we saw lots of other improvements for the family too. They were smaller, but we saw improvements with the kids. I lost weight. I feel better. So it's our lifestyle now.
Who or what was the biggest influence on him going carnivore?
At the very beginning, it was Dr. Barry. He'd seen some of his videos, and I can't remember his name, but there was a cardiologist that we would see some interviews with from time to time that talked about that as well.
Dr. Ovadia, maybe?
Probably. I can't remember. And then, slowly as more people came onto the scene, we're like, okay, this is not crazy. And, we feel better. So we're like, he was miserable before. He feels good now. I mean, that's the best testimonial I can think of.
and it spilled over to you and your children. Tell us
Mhm,
about that transition and how you've done on that
mhm.
transition.
Yeah, absolutely. My kids, we transitioned the kids slower because it, it wasn't their choice, you might say. People think that, I don't know, we're the kind of parents that we get to decide things like what our kids eat.
Mhm.
Um, and so, but we did it a lot slower. So I the first thing we did was just take out all the like seriously crazy heavy grains. So I got rid of cereal and I got rid of pasta and I got rid of breads. And then, after a few months, I got rid of like the little less, um, a little bit more and a little bit more. And then eventually we were just down to a little bit of fruits and vegetables. And actually the vegetables went pretty fast too, because everyone was like, nobody really missed it all that much. And and then I just slowly started to buy the fruit less and less until they got used to it not being around. And so for the kids, it was probably about a 9-month transition. But for me, I went completely like my husband right away.
And what type of benefits have you seen?
Mhm. For me, I initially lost about 50 pounds, and I had tons more energy. My skin got better. My moods were better. Was a huge part of that. So, and then probably the most personal was that I was starting to see some like fertility side effects. Like I was having like I was diagnosed with a form of endometriosis, and they were like, you may or may not be able to get pregnant again. And I was having lots of symptoms that were unpleasant that there was no treatment for. And those symptoms stopped getting worse. And then I promptly got pregnant. So, so then I spent the next, you know, year having the baby, and I'm still nursing, and he's about almost a year and a half old now.
Wow. 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 Do you see this and tell us a little bit about your community, your other family
Mhm,
members and friends, and how
mhm,
are they seeing this? And are you guys strict only animal products, or are there some plants in your carnivore lifestyle?
mhm. So we are strict. We like to call it focus. We try to make it sound a little bit nicer, but we don't consume any animal product or any plants at all, outside of occasionally some processed meats, which will have like seasonings and occasional feelers. But we try to make that a really small part of what we do. But otherwise, it's meat, dairy, and eggs, all that. Um,
Coffee,
our fam.
tea, coffee and
Um,
teas?
so I've been a coffee addict since I was a teenager. I gave up coffee for about 2 years of this, and then during the after I had the baby, I kind of let it slip back in, so now I'm weaning myself back off of it. So it's just very occasionally. My husband, not
I,
at all.
I was off coffee for 2.5 years and I just kind of went back on a little bit, not a lot. And,
Mhm,
I breathe the air, drink the fluids, even the waters of the world. And, I guess there's a measurement of it, but, are we addicts or
mhm,
finding there are certain amounts because I don't think it's required to be a full carnivore with no
mhm,
plants because if we're animal fat centric and eat less frequently and our mindset is that of having faith in God within all of
mhm.
us, we can be healthier than ever. And
Right.
and there's a comment in there about a plant eater, which some people will feel better on a plant-based diet because it's
Mhm,
medicinal, and other
mhm,
habits they may be doing could be valuable. So we're not here. I'm not here to chastise anyone's diet, but
mhm.
I would you say that in general, the animal-centric diet has been the best for you and your husband and your family?
Oh yes, without a doubt, it is changed our whole family culture with the health, the way we feel. I also truly believe that my husband probably would not be here today at this point if he hadn't changed his diet. And people can say, well, anyone that way you lose weight is going to be an improvement or whatever. But I, until you have seen the personal effect, like was dealing with anxiety for over 20 years, was on medication. They said, you'll never get off of it. He struggled with serious panic attacks. And that started to clear up within days. It took a while to wean off of the medication, but the difference in his mental health and that clarity was so remarkable. And we didn't even expect that. We were just hoping it might help him lose some weight. And in the end, losing weight was like the least interesting thing that happened to his health.
And tell us about the doctor's view of his dietary practices.
Mm-hmm. When he has talked to doctors about it, they're very disinterested. They kind of are like, oh, well, maybe consider having some more fiber, and they just very generic advice. And they applaud the weight loss, but they don't see any connection to all the other things. They just sort of look at it like, oh, that's cool. Glad that's working for you.
And, it's an interesting thing. Are you guys finding that those people that once seem disinterested or seem unbelieving begin to sort of watch your transitions, and maybe you could speak about this on your YouTube channel and how you're listening to other stories where like, I didn't believe this, but like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, we get over time, we get feedback from like our online friends and family. So like someone my husband used to go to high school with will reach out and be like, hey, are you still doing that carnivore thing? Or there's an old friend I had from years ago that would reach out, and they would see, she's like, hey, I saw your videos come up in my reels, and I've been thinking about carnivore, and is that working for you? And so we do get that. And then a few people that we interact with regularly, but mostly the people that we're around all the time, that they think it's kind of a novelty. They don't totally get it. And you tell them their story, and I don't know, sometimes people are just like, wow, that's really cool, but I could never do that. And other times people are like, yeah, I don't know if you really still need to do all of that. That seems extreme. So it's a whole mixed reaction, especially with the kids. Like, people somehow inherently think we're depriving them if they don't have birthday cake, a couple of times a year.
Well, I put out a comment. What comments do you get on the carnivore lifestyle? And really, it's for everyone out there. I'm asking everyone to share their comments wherever you're in the world, and because I think it's important that we all interact and communicate, because everyone's at a different spot. So tell me a little bit about, tell us all a little bit about your YouTube channel and like why share it with other people.
Yes. Well, I get the most amazing feedback. I mean, there's always going to be the haters out there, but most of what I get on my videos is just a lot of excitement and joy and stories about the people's kids who have struggled with health issues, like really extreme things, whether from mental illness or kids that are struggling with autoimmune disorders that have seen improvement, or kids that have like seizure disorder, seeing massive improvement. And I get a ton of comments that said, I wish I had known about carnivore when my kids were little. I get that comment so much, just people wishing, as they see their kids struggle with their health, and wishing that they could go back and do it over again, knowing, because like I'm a late 80s, 90s kids. I mean, we grew up on a lot of the processed foods, and those were the age of the Pop-Tarts and the frozen burritos, and our parents, it was cool that everything was convenient, but I think we're seeing the effects, and people want to do well for their kids. And so they're excited to see ideas and inspiration on how it's done.
So spreading awareness, it seems like I think it's our biggest thing, because we all fight opposite ideas, in whether it's politics, religion, lifestyles, nutrition, all these things, right? It's our first habit to fight that. Do you think this has helped our sense of mindset and maybe spirituality in some cases to see the world more clearly?
Absolutely. there's so many women I know that go around in brain fog, and I don't know if it's particularly more effective to women because of our hormone sensitivity, but I know so many women at age that just, it's almost like you just are never fully awake. And when that fog cleared, it just gave me the ability to be so much more focused on my family and my life, and our connecting with my kids and our spiritual development. It's I don't know, it's just super remarkable.
Your your children on trips and travel and school, how do they do? And are people surprised at their strength and like turning down cookie cakes and ice cream?
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. People are, they, a lot of times they don't get it. Like they think I'm in unless they really have looked into it. They think carnivore means we eat mostly meat, or like a meat heavy diet, and so they'll offer up things that are really not a good fit. But we try to be really easygoing and work with people. But they are amazed at how well behaved my kids are, how they have good energy, but they're not hyper. That we don't have the mood swings. They're like on their school sports teams, they're constantly known as the most like attentive kids and well behaved. It's my girls play middle school softball, and they have to have they have to like ban energy drinks because you have 13-year-olds having two before practice and then getting the shakes and having to become picked up by parents because they're so dissociated from what it feels like to be healthy. Yep, all day long they're just
The ups and
doing
downs.
ups and downs and ups and downs. And I see so many kids because I'm around a lot of kids. I have 9 kids. They all have friends. We're going to sports. We're going to church. We're going to school activities. And I see so many kids that are just struggling. They're overweight. They have autoimmune disorders. Their mental clarity's all over the place. Their energy's all over the place. And they don't know why they don't feel good. They don't even know what feeling good is. They don't even know what it would be like to feel good. And so I just, like, my heart breaks for them, not because I'm judging what their parents feed them. Their parents love them. They we didn't know what we didn't know. I wish we had started sooner too. I don't think people realize how much our food matters.
Yeah, that's and we've all been trained this way. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Breakfast is the best meal of the day. And don't forget to fuel your metabolism. You need to keep the food in your mouth, fill your stomach. And that's one of our biggest challenges. So social situations, I think you already kind of answered this. I just want to make sure, how do you handle the social situations, kids' birthdays, and those sort of things.
So we say that we're the no exceptions kind of carnivore. So we initially were like, we'll make exceptions for birthday parties. But with 9 kids and 2 parents, we had 11 birthday parties a year just in our family, on top of Christmas, Easter, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then every friend's birthday. So it was like that's too many exceptions for one. And so we just said no exceptions. I try to communicate with wherever they're going. I will, if I need to, I send their own food. I always offer to make them food. If they're going to something that's like a party with treats and things like that, they get to take their own treats. So we have different things that they really enjoy. They don't get a lot of because if it's expensive or complicated to make, and they get to take those with them. And most of their friends now know that this is so if they go spend the night, they stock up, they make eggs and sausage for breakfast or something like that. So most people are very gracious and very accommodating, as long as I don't make it a big demand.
Are you noticing that more and more these crazy carnivores are showing up?
Oh, big time. The difference from when we started to now it's like night and day.
When did you start?
There's so many. almost 4 years ago. June will be 4 years.
Yeah. And so it's sort of like, well, and I don't know, I'm seeing a lot more closet carnivores. Basically, I've been a carnivore for 2 or 3 years, but they're under the radar.
Yeah.
Especially in the doctor medical community.
Oh, I bet, because there's a lot of that comes with that.
Yeah.
I meet carnivores when I started meeting people in public randomly that either knew of carnivore or had tried it. That was like the first time I sat at a baseball field chatting with a teammate's mom. And she's like, oh, yeah, we've been doing carnivore for like 8 months. She's like, it's really cool. And they have kids. And she had brought like carnivore chicken nuggets that she made. She makes homemade chicken nuggets for her kids where they grind up they take ground chicken and they dip it in egg and then they dip it in pork rinds and they kind of like fry it in tallow. And she brought those to the ballpark and she's like sharing with my kids. I was like, you're our new best friends. Can we be best friends now? So that to me was the turning point, was just, I'm just running. And that's happened several times where you just run into people who are like, oh yeah, I was trying that. Or, they actually know what it is. So
we really need our fruits and vegetables, Peter, Papa Carnivore. But with the fiber, what about not eating fiber? It's like, aren't you concerned about the lack of fiber in your children's diet?
When nobody's constipated, and as far as I can tell, that's the only reason they seem to come up with that we need fiber.
But I think most people tend to eat fiber, and constipation and pain and bloating and bleeding is common, and hemorrhoids are common. I mean, it's just the system, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems counterintuitive, but I know there was a study done at one point that the least constipated people had zero fiber. So I don't know. I can tell you, we don't have any problems with it. There's 11 of us. It's been 4 years. Occasionally, if kids go to grandma's house and they eat way too much cheese, they might get a little bit constipated, but it's nothing like it's really not a problem.
I always say it feels like you got to go, but you're not. And bloating and pain, that's our problem. But on a carnivore diet and minimal fruits, if you choose to eat them, because they're generally not very fibrous if you have ripe fruit. And that's really the difference. And I would say, stay off of it in general.
I can tell you when I eat fruit, I get sugar cravings. Like my kids, when they were still eating fruit, I'd get them like plain yogurt and frozen berries to put on it. And I would sneak a couple of blueberries and then I would think about sugar all day long. Like even just that little bit would just trigger those sugar cravings for me. And maybe some people are more, that's not a problem for them. But for me, sugar is such a falling point.
Trigger. Yeah. Well, I think, it is a natural trigger because when the sweet fruit was around, if you didn't eat it, you might not be fat enough for your hibernation, migration, gestation, or famines or wars. Those don't happen anymore, do they?
No. Well, and I would tell my kids, and I mentioned this in a video once, if you think about the natural order of things, it used to be blueberries would come into season. Maybe if you lived in an area with blueberries and they'd come into season, you would go out and pick all that you could. You'd make a few pies or treats. You'd can a few or freeze them if you had that ability. And then that would be all the blueberries you would get all year. But now we can have a pound of blueberries every day. I can get a muffin with blueberries in it every morning, 365 days a year. So blueberries are we still see them as this scarcity resource, but fruit used to be, unless you lived in a tropical area, fruit was scarce for most people.
We live in a perpetual fall for winter preparation. That's our only single problem. If you're animal centric and minimize the ripe fruit plants, but only seasonally from small amounts from time to time, but when you eat them, you're meant to be addicted to them. That's not addiction is a pathologic condition. Eating sugar is not pathology. It's actually biology and physiology, because that's our ancient environment. But what the carnivore lifestyle and being a strict, really, focused, is to recognize that the environment we're in is unnatural. And so for so many of us, small amounts from time to time suddenly turn out to all of the time. But there's nothing wrong with you. You're not addicted. You have no pathology. And eating that is not pathologic, except you've been convinced that it's what you should do, and it's good for you. And then they make the environment. I mean, basically, we are an addictive animal, because if you're not addicted to food and even reproduction, the species dies off. And the brain is a lot smarter than us, or the subconscious brain. The ancient instinctual brain is much more powerful than any of us. And I would say that I give up coffee anytime I want. I am really good at like having minimally, if not at all, the sweet things from time to time. But I'm 70 and done it a long time, and I feel powerful in my abilities to say thank you, no, or yes. But I think that as we're training children, how do you create the discernment? I know as a child, I couldn't sit still. I had migraines, bowel problems, couldn't read in school. I was basically in the back of the room, or not in the room at all. And do you think that your children are seeing an improvement in their cognition and other things in their lives?
Oh, they definitely are. They don't all self-recognize it as, but some do more than others. I did an interview a few summers ago, and I interviewed each of my kids and asked them what they liked and what they didn't like and what they missed about it, and just trying to show an honest perspective from the kids' point of view. But definitely the older ones remember how sick dad was, for starters. But they also remember some of the things, like my son that's almost 19. He was at 13 and 14 struggling with migraines, and we could not find anything that helped with that, and besides just having emergency medication for that. But within 6 months, the migraine stopped, and he knows now. He's almost 19. He can go eat whatever he wants. We're not the boss of him, his diet anymore, but he still chooses to eat this way most of the time. Sometimes he will go out to eat other food, but he also gets stomach aches when he does that, and he doesn't like how he feels. So he always is like, no, I really think this is the best way to eat, to the point that his girlfriend has started eating this way with him.
Wow.
So it's a choice, and we tell them that like, when you're adults, you'll be able to eat however you want, but at least I know that you will know how it feels to feel good, and you will know how to get back there if you choose to, try all of the things. I know you'll probably get all the side effects too, and you probably won't like that. But you'll be adults, and it'll be your job to decide if you want to feel good. But while you live with me, I get to decide if you feel good.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest faults in our nutrition, even carnivores, is low fat. I see too many carnivores that cooked fat is not the same as raw fat. It's rendered. It damages the very sugars and proteins that are critical for human evolution and survival. And again, those that wander away from a strict carnivore fatty meat diet, the problem often is they just focus on the low fat and they forget the butter, the cream. And you got to be careful of cheeses, because a lot of cheeses are not as fatty as you think. That's the problem. And what about dairy in your family? How do they tolerate dairy?
So everyone tolerates dairy pretty well. Nobody's bothered by eating it. My husband and I, if we eat too much dairy, we gain weight back. And so that's something we're kind of struggling a little after I had the last baby. I had some had some aversion to red meat throughout the first trimester. So I was eating a lot of chicken and salmon and things like that. And it just kind of set me on a path. And so if I eat a lot of dairy, I gain weight. So I'm kind of getting back in the habit of being really strict to get back to where I feel good. But otherwise, we let the kids eat. If it's around, they can have dairy. We don't really limit it too much outside of the expense of, like, we can only buy so much cheese. So when the cheese is gone, you just have to go back to the plain, and they're mostly okay with that.
There was a comment here. Does LDL, HDL, or cholesterol cause disease?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but my background is in chemistry, so uh, everything that I've looked through or read, it gives me the impression that just because two things are present together at the same time doesn't mean one's the cause of the other. So I think we're looking at the wrong culprit for disease. Early on, I really liked the phrase that not blame the butter for what the bread did. So it's like, you'll look at these studies that say like red meat causes cancer. And then you look at what they were eating, and they're eating like people that eat hamburgers, fries, and soda have, more heart disease than people on a raw vegetarian diet. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, but you're picking one thing to blame, not the 200 grams of sugar that were also in this meal and the hundreds of processed ingredients that are artificial. And, we're they're not comparing apples to apples. And since I have a background in really strict science, it's made me I side eye almost all food nutrition research, because a lot of it's very hand wavy in how they look at things.
Well, since governments and scientists and nutritionists and the medical community gave us a list of what we should eat and how we should live, have we gotten healthier or sicker?
No, we're so much sicker, and it's like it's continuing declining. I mean, the more they try to tell us what to do, the worse it gets. And yet any attempt to make links between some particular like processed product or seed oils or red dyes was starting to become a thing when my kids were little, where people were realizing that their kids. I had one friend who could tell literally if she pulled out the red M&Ms, her son was a different kid. But if she could give him one red M&M, and he would start to have all these symptoms as like a 3-year-old of hyperactivity and ADHD and things like that. And she's like, all I did was take the red dyes out of our diet. And she's like, and everyone tells me I'm crazy, that I'm making this up. She's like, but I spend all day with him. I know what he eats. And we try to put it back in, and symptoms all come back. And yet you start to talk about those things, and people look at you like you have a tinfoil hat on. Like, heaven forbid there might be some component in our food that affects people really negatively. And so we don't look at those things. We just try to follow the plate or the pyramid or some other thing. Low fat is, they're like obsessive about that since the 80s.
We're fat phobic, and we're brainwashed, all of us. And so that fat phobia is fat on our bodies a cause of disease?
I definitely don't think they could prove that. I think they could theorize it, but
it's that propaganda story that you're obese and you're unhealthy and you should hate yourself. And most people do, because that's the paradigm. But in fact, your body is the gift of God, and it's perfect the way it is. And the fat is not the cause of disease, but what's filling your gut, which is mostly plant protein, low fat, alcohol, sodas, energy drinks, and 3 to 6 plant-based low animal fat meals a day. And so we're afraid of eating it. And I see carnivores cut fat away from their diet all day long. And they don't look healthy.
No, they don't. I low fat carnivore. I don't feel as good. I'm not as satisfied. I don't lose weight. I have seen, my generation of women generally started on low fat diets somewhere around puberty, when you start getting self-conscious about your body, so middle school, high school. and you start on low fat, and we will eat that way our entire lives. And it's not surprising to me how much I see my women my age struggling that with their hormones being out of balance, the infertility rates are
Right.
astronomical. How can your body regulate and manage a pregnancy if the hormones and we need hormones to get we get hormones from fat. Like you need enough fat for your body to be able to have a balanced hormone um,
Or,
biome.
yeah, well, our hormones are damaged because the organ systems that make them are damaged. Plus, plants contain phytoestrogens, androgens, and progestins.
Mm-hmm.
So you're essentially eating your birth control and abortion pills. I mean, that really is the simplicity. It's kind of like your hormones aren't the problem, your diet is the problem, which then damages
Yes.
your hormones. Because our correction of hormonal problems is basically, let's just give you some hormones. And even testosterone for men, they're thinking,
Yes.
well, my libido's low or my energy's low and I need TRT, all right? Even thyroid supplementation, because the plants essentially damage the thyroid gland in every other cell of our body, along with the microbes that come with the plants and the fermentation. And that's the simplicity of the story that we're missing. You're right. And everyone gets something. It isn't always reproduction. It isn't always your gut. It isn't always your neurovascular system, but it's always something. And I was reading a little bit of Michael Bolton, who has a glioblastoma, also reminding me of my good friend Jen Slotnick, who died of a glioblastoma at age 28, who inspires me every day. But the stories we hear, there's little modern medicine equating plants and disease together. And that's one of our biggest challenges. And again, you can eat some plants, by the way. You do not have to be a strict carnivore. We are omnivores. You can be strong and healthy on a fatty meat centric diet, in my opinion. Eat less frequently. If you choose any plants, cook them well, simplify them, get rid of the fiber, and add lots of fat, and you're likely going to be okay. Because even carnivores are going to get sick and die. It's like
right.
It's a given, right?
Right.
But what about your medical bills and needing to go to the doctor for the vaccines and the well doctor visits and all the message that your kids should be on a healthy diet and exercise more?
Yes. So, I mean, I was kind of always comfortable with being controversial. I didn't vaccinate our kids from the beginning. It probably doesn't surprise you. I kind of went down that rabbit hole with my first pregnancy, and I had actually grew up around a family with a vaccine injured kid, so it made me not just assume it was a foregone conclusion. And part of what made me do that is just going down the rabbit hole of I felt like there were too many and that we were worried about things that we shouldn't be worried about, like chicken pox. I was like, I grew up with chicken pox. Everyone I knew had chicken pox. My mom grew up in an age when everybody had measles, and there was, she has no memory of anyone ever dying of the measles. And she knew one kid her entire life that died of chicken pox, and they had gotten the ricin complication from having aspirin with it. And
oh wow.
And then that's in her 70 years on this planet, being in a community where everybody got these illnesses. So I didn't have this fear of these things, and it went me down this rabbit hole of, why are we so afraid of things that are normal and natural and have really low risk? And so, there was that. But my kids, we go for well checks because we go like once a year, and I kind of roll my eyes because it helps to have a good relationship with a pediatrician, because when occasionally we need something, she knows, she knows my kids well enough to deal with it from afar. I don't have, it's a tough thing to, the whole system is like, it's hard to like get out of it, but generally speaking, they don't get sick. We don't get sick very often. They occasionally get colds, they get stomach bugs, but for the most part, they're very, very healthy. Nobody has any medications. Nobody has ongoing complications. There's 9 kids and 2 adults. Nobody's being treated for anything. And I can tell you, if I go to a room full of kids and there's 10 kids in the room, they're going to be, besides my kids, there's going to be 2 or 3 kids that have gluten allergies. Somebody's got an egg allergy. Somebody's got a nut allergy. Somebody's intolerant to dairy. Half of them are ADHD. There's going to be 2 or 3 that are autistic. There's going to be 2 or 3 that have autoimmune disorders. So our kids are struggling and across the whole country. And that's the same if they're from rural poor communities. It's the same if their parents are, you know, plant-based and they're trying to be vegan and they eat all organic, and it's the cross, and it's the ones that are like, I'm just trying to get through life and we eat McDonald's chicken nuggets 3 times a week. It's the same all the way across the board. Their kids are struggling. The number of middle schoolers I know being treated for mental health disorders is mind-blowing. And it did not used to be this way. This is not normal. Our kids are struggling. And I think it's okay to be radical to try to find a way to help them with that.
Comfortable with conflict,
Yeah.
controversy. That's really, really, really good. I think we've actually been sick for a long time. It's just getting worse, but the sicknesses have been for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But now that the message is propagated in a way, and we're alive, the ones noticing it. But I bet thousands of years as the masters fed the masses bread and beer and controlled them with agriculture, and forced those that were basically followed the herds and the hunters, conscripted to, and basically we've all been enslaved in essence. And now the governmental message, we have to wait for the government to tell us that it's okay to eat meat, which is all BS. We don't need any of that, right? And good deal to Robert Kennedy. Love the guy, but we don't need that. We really need the simplicity of the story, because the same thing about the new food pyramid, it's low fat. It's trying to be okay with all the plant makers. I mean, ultimately, the same people who make the fresh fruits and vegetables make the processed food, and ultimately nobody's listening to that, because the real driver are the institutions, the schools, and what percentage of children around the globe do not go to some governmental institutionalized schooling, and maybe even some way homeschooling is somewhat controlled also, and because certainly carnivore isn't in the homeschooling world in general. It's messed up. But I think that we are seeing it because processed, highly simple things to produce in mass quantities have high shelf life, and we're just doing what we're supposed to do: eat more of that food to get us fat, because the brain is smarter than we are. That something is coming.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that these foods are made to be highly palatable. They taste so much more like they're designed, like they have labs full of researchers trying to decide the exact flavor combination to make something taste like something. Like this
umami is a deal. We've got all these scientific complicated terms, right? Like, isn't there just some simplicity? I mean, you have some chemical understanding and background, but is that really required to get back to our ancient basic biblical stories?
No, it's not. And when you talk about biblical stories, it is interesting. As Christians, we sometimes get people to say, well, God said all the plants were there for us to eat, and they ate plants in the Bible. And so what are you saying, that plan's not good enough? And I'll say for one, sure, you can eat all the plants exactly as they were in the Bible. That our plants don't resemble anything that they did a couple thousand, 5,000, 7,000 years ago, whatever you want to say. Like they're highly modified. They're been bred, they've been hybrid, and now they're genetically modified. They're sprayed with all kinds of pesticides, or soil,
Oh,
not this, all kinds of things. And so like you look at like an example, I grew up in a rural area, and there was a place that we could hike into that had an apple tree that had been put there by a settler like over 100 years ago. And so this is an ancient, untouched apple tree. The apples are like this big. They're kind of bitter. They were definitely tart. They were half seeds, and you would just kind of nibble around the outside, and you're like, okay, well, that's not really that great. You could see how it would be fine as an apple pie or something like that. Or if you had no other sweet thing in your life, probably was a treat. But that's what apples were 150 years ago. And now they're huge, they're sweet, they're juicy. I mean,
well,
and and we're eating several a day sometimes, and it's not the same.
how did apples and potatoes basically wander around the world?
Yeah, that too. They're not.
Explorers exploited them, and then we exploited all of the plants.
Mhm,
Basically, they control us anyway, right?
mhm,
We are bred on bread,
mhm,
and bread. All of us. There's. I mean, again, it's back to the birth control. It's
mhm,
controlling the birth and controlling the masses, and then guiding them to where we want them to go. You know,
mhm,
you go on to university, you go into the army.
Mhm.
You don't go to university at all. And again, we're grading children
mhm,
as if the things that they've been tested and graded on determines who they can and cannot be, which is another lie.
mhm. Yes.
Uh, and I was lucky. I kicked out of school in a gang, couldn't read, father in jail. I basically worked. I did pottery painting and jewelry, and that's where I was. And then I managed to get into medical school, and I see all the challenges and troubles that go on in our modern system, which is
Mhm,
all based on John D. Rockefeller's. Basically, he learned from the sugar cartel how to create the oil cartel, and basically the control of education, science, and and studies and
mhm.
experiments. So, is there any truth to any hard science in this world? Or is it all theoretical?
I mean, I I do tend to think that hard science is a real thing.
Which
There's
one?
just so little. What's
Which
that?
one? Well, which science is hard science? It's all theoretical. Science
Mm,
is another story that we've been led to believe is factual and true. That's all. Which
mm.
one, which theory is never at risk of being debunked?
Oh, sure. Like the nature of science has to invite challenge. That's one thing
Well,
that I hate about the nutritional system and the way things are is once the experts decide what is true, we're supposed to just go along with it. And if you oppose that, you're a radical or you're just anti-science or you're whatever. And I'm like, real science it can hold up to challenge, and it either you challenge it and it's either proven
it,
accurate or it's not, or
it can't.
you learn.
It's remember, all science is theoretical and a p-value. All of it. We human beings create the story based on our observations, and
It's
then
true.
we propagate it because
Mhm,
of your position, paper, and power as truth.
mhm.
Are the metabolic pathways absolutely untrue?
I mean, I would say with that, yeah, I wouldn't say so.
They're probably not true and correct because we observed them in petri dish science, paid
Mhm.
and bought and paid for by the Rockefellers. Otto Warburg
Yeah.
and Hans Krebs are no different
Mhm,
than anyone. And,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
so, really, without the science, could you simply eat a fatty meat diet and eat less frequently and feel healthy and you don't need to know anything else?
No, for sure. You can do exactly that. I think you could, the way you feel is going to tell you whether or not this is working for you, whether this makes sense for you. And when you look out through human history and around the world, there are a number of cultures that have lived without plants or nearly entirely without plants. I don't know of any longstanding culture where people lived without meat. And the few people that do it now, the vegan and vegetarian communities, they have to supplement with other things most of the time. And a lot of them, most of them can't do it long term and feel good. That's why I think you see a disproportionate amount of former vegans and vegetarians on carnivore. We had a friend who was she had been a vegan for like 15 years, and she was really struggling with some health things. And so she went on that was the first time I'd heard of keto. And she went on a keto before keto was a fad. So she just ate super low carb, high fat, high meat diet. And she said it's like her brain lit up. She was like, I was like, for the first time in 15 years, she felt like she was fully awake. And she's like, I'm never going back.
The poisons were removed. Nothing more.
Mm-hmm.
Plants and protein as a solo diet for humans is deadly for us. And basically, there are 17,000 diagnostic codes to diseases, and then there are infinite many add-ons. Right? And ultimately, we're not a disease. We basically have poison ivy disease. We're poisoned by the plants, microbes, or a mixture of the two in a low animal fat diet. And then the science of minerals and vitamins, is that accurate and true?
I mean, I definitely think we don't fully understand it. There's a lot of things about it. It's so nuanced. I think that's part of it too, is you can't treat two individuals as the same. How can we say that you and I should be exactly identical? I mean, there's nothing identical about us in terms of our body chemistry, our weight, our age, our hormone needs. You can, put two women next to each other that should be same age, same stage in life, but we're not the same. We are all unique individuals.
But biologically, we are the same. Biological and physiological, we are the same. And Santana Babaji, 1811, 83, and not eating meat in over 50 years. I guess part of the question is, do you take any supplements? Do you take any other things that add to that fact? But I always think the mindset is the master set. I don't care what diet you eat. If you have a mind of the master and understand the power, I think we can overcome everything and anything. And as Santana Babaji has spoken, I mean, again, we're honoring everyone's nutrition, but I will agree with Rebecca. Our children are suffering on a plant protein, low animal fat diet and multiple meals a day. And are your kids and family generally eating? It's not necessary to do one meal a day, but how are they practicing?
So they're allowed to eat as often as they want. We tell them to just follow their hunger cues. Most of the older ones cook for themselves, and then, we cook for smaller ones, but we don't. So I don't make one big meal or two meals or whatever, and everybody eats the same thing, because we figure it's it's strict enough. We might as well allow some flexibility in what they eat from day to day. Most of them eat 1 to 2 meals a day by choice, and they have just naturally fallen into that rhythm. So like my 14-year-old twins will have two, huge pork steaks in the afternoon, smothered in butter. And that's usually the only thing that they will eat during the day. And that's by choice. But most of what we eat is whole meats. So we keep chicken around, we keep pork steaks, we keep ground beef. We buy 80 pounds of ground beef at a time, usually twice a month. It's a lot of ground beef. And then we go to a store and we get like the whole ribeye that we can slice off of, or a whole New York strip and slice off of that. We have eggs, and periodically we'll have fish and shrimp around, but that's pretty much all we eat. And then
Well,
butter. We eat so much butter.
your grocery bill,
Mhm.
could you equate something on how truly it is affordable to live on an
Mhm.
animal-based diet more so than people know?
Yeah, absolutely. So it initially our groceries did go up as we were adjusting because we were eating a lot of processed meats and trying things and trying to figure out what the kids like. But now it's not that much different than it was before. But we buy in bulk. We focus on more frugal options, but we don't eat out. You know, we used to have Friday night pizza night, and we'd spend $200 on pizza and snacks and ice cream and sodas and things like that. You know, to go to a restaurant as a family, that's $200 or $300 if we're being like frugal. You know, because there's 11 of us, so but we don't eat out. We don't buy, junk. We don't buy snacks. We're not spending money on things that don't satisfy us. Everything that we buy and purchase is nourishing and enjoyable. So it's really about the same. And we buy in bulk because we know what we're going to eat. So that helps.
I just want to say congratulations to Bev20.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You want to Kiltz Mighty Tribe hat? Please email me, alia@doctorkiltz.com.
And so when do you do your podcasting, your videos? When do you share those?
I try to share short videos almost every day, and the long form. It's real sporadic. I'm working towards trying to do, every week or every other week, but I get 9 kids, so I'm not really as rigorous as I would like to be on that. But I have so as I have time and I'm inspired.
Let me see if I could share this. Or hold on, our good friend Lash, I want to share, was out. I had Lash over and helped us put together
I love it.
some fun stuff, and sharing pictures are really what it's all about, and eating rare to raw fatty meat, salt, water, healthiest thing.
Mhm.
Do you think we need organ meats?
Early on we ate organ meats, but we haven't had any in years. I'm the only one that actually really likes them. So I think if you crave it, maybe you're needing something in it. But if you don't like it, if it turns your stomach, I mean, it's a small part of the animal. So, it's not like people were living off of it, naturally. So I don't think we need it. But, I enjoy some liver now and again and some heart, but I don't make it. There was a time when I was trying to make the kids eat it and they revolted. But so but so I don't think so.
Well, Rebecca, we really, really appreciate everything you're sharing. Where can people get a chance to listen and learn from a mom who's really here to help their children and all of our children to um, live the very best life? And food is healing when it's carnivore.
We are active on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So we try to be in all the places. So whichever one of those platforms you like to watch things on, you can hit us up. We generally answer comments. We answer as much as we can. And, we love to hear from people, hear their stories, ask their questions. We'll tell you what we've done. And if that's helpful to you, then, we just try to share what's worked for us so that people can be inspired.
Well, really appreciate you and everyone here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you. And we're signing off. And I'm not available tonight, but we have KMT Zoom coming up. You there, Alia?
Yeah, I'll be there tonight.
All right.
Yep. All right.
All right, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Mhm.